Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Autumn and today I want to give you 8 spooky books that I'm excited for this fall season. I might be, a little biased, but the fall time is my absolutely favorite time of year. I am so excited to get to all 8 of these thrillers slash horror slash psychological thrillers, scary books. I am so very excited to get to these books in this fall season. They're in no particular order as to who I want to get to first. I would love to get to all 8 of them, but let's be practical, I probably won't. I have them in a little stack right here, and so I am just pulling them off the top. So the first one I would like to talk about is The Lies I Tell by Julie Clark. So this book was on my list of 24 in 24. I have not read it yet, but I was kind of waiting for this time of year to read this book. In my quick 5-second Google search, this book is listed as a twisted domestic thriller mystery. The synopsis says, she's back. Meg Williams, Maggie Littleton, Melody Wild. Different names for the same person, depending on the town, depending on the job. She's a con artist who erases herself to become whoever you need her to be. A college student, a life coach, a real estate agent. But nothing about her is real. She slides among you and tells you exactly what you want to hear, and by the time she's done, you've most likely lost everything. Kat Roberts has been waiting 10 years for the woman who upended her life to return, and now that she has, Kat is determined to be the one to expose her. But as the two women grow closer, Kat's long-held assumptions begin to crumble, leaving Kat to wonder who Meg's true target is. It sounds so good. I will probably just have to read the physical copy of this book. I don't have access to the audiobook and I don't want to waste a credit on the Libro app to purchase this. And actually, as I say that, I think it's Audible only, and I don't like buying books from Audible. So here we are. The next book up on this list is No Exit by Taylor Adams. In my 5-second Google search, it said that this book leans more on the psychological thriller side, which I am a hoe for psychological thrillers. And this one I bought off of Pango. Somebody was getting rid of this book. I immediately had to have this book. I'm so excited to read it. This one I am going to also get the audiobook off of the Libro app for this one because I have a feeling this is one that I am going to want to reread in the future. So I'm gonna just invest in getting the credit for it. But it says, a determined young woman must unmask and outwit a vicious psychopath in this tense and clever tale of suspense. On her way to Utah to see her dying mother, college student Darby Thorne gets caught in a fierce blizzard in the Colorado Rockies. With the roads impassable, she's forced to wait out the storm at a remote highway rest stop with no cell phone reception. Inside, there are some vending machines, a coffee maker, and 4 complete strangers. Desperate to find a signal to call home, the desperate young art student goes back out into the storm and makes a horrifying discovery. In the back of a van parked next to her is a little girl locked in an animal crate. Who is the child? Why has she been taken? And how can Darby save her? There is no way to call for help and no way out. One of her fellow travelers is a kidnapper, but which one? Trapped in an increasingly dangerous situation on the edge of civilization, with a child's life and Darby's own life on the line, she must find a way to break the girl out of the van and escape. But who can she trust? This brilliant thriller will have you on the edge of your seat and leave you breathless. Sounds so freaking good, and I cannot wait to read this one. The next one up, which I have a story about this book, but let me introduce it first. So this one is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. So I have been on the wait list for this book since November of 2023. I think November, maybe December, but at the end of 2023, I finally got the audiobook for this in June. I had a lot of life circumstances pop up in June and I lost the audiobook. I was not able to get to it, so I had to rejoin the waitlist and I had to start all over again. And I'm so upset. But my mother read this book and she thinks I'm absolutely going to love it. She only listened to the audiobook, but she thought the audiobook was phenomenal. This book is pitched as a psychological thriller and also a historical mystery. I didn't know historical mysteries were a thing, but here we go. This book has floated around the booktube community for quite some time, so I won't harp on it for too long, but basically this story takes place on the coast of Maine, and our main character is an elderly woman who needs a home health aide to come and help and take care of her. However, this elderly woman, was the only survivor of her entire family being massacred. She was never found guilty, and she has always just carried on with life, I guess. I guess we'll find out. She is no longer able to speak. One day, the woman that is taking care of her, which her name is Kit McDear, she arrives to Lizzie Borden's house. One night, Lizzie types on the typewriter saying to Kit that she wants to tell her everything that happened. It seems like we're gonna have an untrustworthy narrator, but then also I feel like the other person is not going to be telling the truth. I'm not quite sure if it's dual POV or how this book is formatted, but I am super excited for this book. So the next book on this list, which is classified as a thriller, mystery, and romantic suspense, is You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. I bought this book at the end of 2023 when one of my writing friends came to visit me, and this book sounds incredibly unhinged. So this woman goes to this Airbnb out in the middle of nowhere, I believe, or out into this small town. And when she arrives there, the owner of this Airbnb, he is living there. So she's just kind of like, all right, I guess we're all here together. But then eventually they start to bond, and then they start to fall in love with each other. And it says, what began as a playful romance soon turns into a complicated web of lies. Grace, our main character, grows weary of Calvin, who is the owner of this Airbnb, as his infatuation for her seems to have morphed into obsession. Calvin fears that Grace is hiding something from him, including her reason for staying at his ranch to begin with. Vacation flings typically end in heartbreak, but for Grace and Calvin, it'll be far more destructive. I am so excited for this, and I am on the wait list for the audiobook on Libby, so hopefully I will get it soon. Okay, this next one was a complete impulse buy the last time I went to Barnes & Noble, and it was the cover, and it was the author that is quoted on the front of this book that said it scared the living hell out of him, and I knew I had to have this book. So it is a horror, suspense, and a thriller, and it is The Troop by Nick Cutter. I don't know if this author also has a different pen name, but when I looked up The Troop, there was a different author's name that popped up here along with Nick Cutter, so I'm not quite sure what that's about, and I didn't investigate too far into it because, like I said, it was a 5-second Google search. But Stephen King quoted the top of this, and it says, "The Troop scared the hell out of me and I couldn't put it down. This is old school horror at its best." That's all I needed to know from Stephen King to want to pick this up. So this book follows a group of Boy Scouts. The synopsis on the back says, once a year, Scoutmaster Tim Riggs leads a troop of boys into the Canadian wilderness for a weekend camping trip, a tradition as comforting and reliable as a good ghost story around a roaring campfire. But when an unexpected intruder stumbles onto their campsite, shockingly thin, disturbingly pale, and ferociously hungry, Tim and the boys are exposed to something far more frightening than any tale of horror, a human carrier of a bioengineered nightmare, a horror that spreads faster than fear, a harrowing struggle for survival with no escape from the elements, the infected, or one another. This just sounds phenomenal. I also love a good, creepy wilderness type story. I do not know much about Canada. I know that there are bears, okay? And I am absolutely terrified of bears. This is just, I'm kind of going off the rails here for a second, but just bear with me. I live in the South, right? Where we have alligators, and people are apparently absolutely terrified by alligators. But while, yeah, sometimes in Florida, alligators will just break into your house, there's just nothing more terrifying to me than a grizzly bear. I mean, I'm not saying that there's gonna be bears in this, but what really creeps me out about this story is it says it's in the Canadian wilderness, and I just know that there are bears and grizzly bears in Canada, and that totally just freaks me the F out. Mixing the wilderness where there's danger of, like it said, the elements, but then also this bioengineered nightmare that's like hunting these kids and the scoutmaster down. Terrifying. This scares me. And with Stephen King saying it's old school horror, give it to me. Let's do this. Let's read it at 2 a.m. If we want a reading vlog for that, let me know. I will totally do it. All right, so the next one on this list, I won't go into too much detail because I have mentioned this book in a couple of other videos, but the next one on this list is The Return of Ellie Black by Amiko Jean. And this book came out this year back in May, I believe, May of 2024. And I am so excited for this book. I had a friend that ended up reading this book and she absolutely loved it. She may have had an ARC copy. I don't remember, but I think she did. But this book is a psychological thriller. I won't read the entire synopsis, but I will read the little blurb at the top. It says, a missing girl returns, but that isn't the end of the story. It is only the beginning. This next book up is a little bit of a twist, I think, and I believe it's young adult. Let me pull up my 5-second Google search. Yes, so this one is, according to Google, as a young adult horror fiction. And this came out last year in 2023, and it's What Stalks Among Us by Sarah Hollowell. And this book sounds so wild. I have got to read you the synopsis because it sounds so unhinged and just completely wild. Before I read what's on the inside, it literally says at the top, we die in the maze, we die in the maze, we die in the maze. And I know that this book has them in some type of loop, but let me read you the synopsis because it is wild. Best friends and high school seniors Sadie and Logan make their first mistake when they ditch their end of the year field trip to an amusement park in favor of exploring some old forgotten back roads. The last thing they expect is to come across a giant abandoned corn maze. But with the whole day of playing hooky unspooling before them, they made their second mistake, or perhaps their third, maybe even their fourth, because Sadie and Logan have definitely entered this maze before, and again before that. When they stumble on the corpses in the maze, identical to them in every way, from their clothes to their hidden scars, from their dyed blue hair to that missing tooth, they quickly realize they've not only entered this maze before, they've died in it too. A lot, but they can't figure out what or who is hunting them, and time is running out. Doesn't that just sound wild? This sounds so unhinged, and I just have to read it. I'm trying not to go in with super high expectations because I don't want to be disappointed, but I definitely want to give this book the justice that it needs. And the last one on this list, which is going to be classified as a young adult summer horror and paranormal fiction, is You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron. I bought this book at the same time I bought You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose. That's why they have the little Target sticker on them. I think I had heard someone say it's a slasher, and I love a good slasher movie. I don't think I've ever read a slasher book. The synopsis of this says, I'm the final girl, guaranteed to survive the night. Charity has the summer job of her dreams, playing the final girl at Camp Mirror Lake. Guests pay to be scared in this full contact terror game as Charity and her summer crew recreate scenes from a classic slasher film, The Curse of Camp Mirror Lake. The more realistic the fear, the better for business. But on the last weekend of the season, Charity's coworkers begin disappearing, and when one ends up dead, Charity's role as the final girl suddenly becomes all too real. If Charity and her girlfriend Bezzy hope to survive the night, they need to figure out what the killer is after. As they unravel the bloody history of the real Mirror Lake, Charity discovers that there may be more to the story than she ever suspected. I have the audiobook for this on hold through the Libby app. It's not super long. I think it's an 8-hour audiobook, so this is definitely one that I'll be able to knock out in an afternoon, but it just sounds so good, and I love the cover. Really, it was the cover that sold me. These are all the horrors and thrillers and spooky books that I want to read this fall season, and I hope I put some new books on your radar. Definitely let me know down in the comments if I did put a new book on your radar, if you've read any of these books. Definitely no spoilers, but let me know if you've read any of these books, what you rated it. I am very excited to get to all of these books, but that is going to be the end of this video. If you made it to the end and you don't know what else to say, leave me the little ghost emoji down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.